Thank you. Very good. We would like to welcome everybody to the Assembly Local Government Committee. We do have sufficient members for a quorum. If we could please call the roll to establish that.
Smythe.
Here.
Alejo. Bradford. Campos. Wachowski. Gordon. Hueso. Knight. Norby.
Very good. While we are waiting for an author, I would be happy to entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. We also would like to welcome Mr. Wachowski, who is stepping in for Mr. Davis today as well.
And the friend of local government.
Clearly, always a friend of the people, friend of local government. Thank you very much. Let's please call the roll on consent.
Smythe.
Aye.
Smythe, aye. Alejo. Bradford. Campos. Campos, aye. Wachowski.
Aye.
Wachowski, aye. Gordon. Hueso. Hueso, aye. Knight. Knight, aye. Norby.
Mr. Bradford, how are you on consent?
Bradford, aye.
Very good. Thank you very much. We do have an author. Mr. Lara, thank you for being here. You are up first.
Thank you.
We'll be hearing, I believe it is AB 1343, 45, A 1345.
Mr. Chair and members, thank you so much. AB 1345 strengthens the independent audit process and provides safeguards to protect taxpayers from waste, fraud, and abuse. Recent audit findings by the State Controller's Office of the City of Montebello Modoc County, and the city of Montebello, and the city of Bell, found millions of state, federal, and local dollars were misspent over several years. The misuse and
Chair?
abuse of funds.
We need to protect taxpayers from that raspy voice. I'll move the bill.
Thank you. I'm giving you my Barry White.
When you do have support on both sides, so we do have a motion and a second. So if you'd like to move over to your witnesses.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Linda Lingblom. I'm representing the State Controller's Office. I'm joined by Walter Barnes from our Division of Audits. We thank the committee for hearing and considering this bill today, and we are available to answer any questions and respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Very good. Any other witnesses in support? Thank you. Any witnesses in opposition? Seeing none. Mr. Wachowski, did you have a question?
I was wondering, I was on local governments, and we routinely, I think the best practices is that you change the auditors and the people that do your books. Has anybody sent a letter to Modoc County or these other entities to find out what's the problem? Why would they not voluntarily do this?
Well, they may voluntarily do it, but we think that this particular standard, which is one that is accepted by the auditors themselves, the private auditors themselves, as an appropriate forum for independence of the auditor, is to allow for this changeover every 6 months.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree with you, and I think more medium-sized cities, and obviously it's not that big of a problem because most cities, when they know about this, they, for their own transparency, want to have somebody else brought in. I guess I'm just concerned that we have to force some of these counties that have lots of other problems to play by the rules and do things that give confidence to the public that their books are being properly audited. So I would hope that the Controller's Office, who has special interest in the legislature, can contact these counties individually as this legislation is going through to say, get up to speed. This is what we expect out of you.
We will.
Right. And we do, again, plan to notify the counties. And, in fact, the school districts already have this requirement in place.
Very good. We do already. Very good. Any other questions from the committee? Thank you. Seeing none. Mr. Lara, if you would, save your voice. Thank you. Let's go ahead and call the roll.
The motion is due pass, and we refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Smythe.
Aye.
Smythe, aye. Alejo. Bradford. Aye. Bradford, aye. Campos. Wachowski. Wachowski, aye. Gordon. Waso. Waso, aye. Knight. Knight, aye. Norby.
Very good. That measure is out.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. If the sergeants would call for any of our potential authors. Mr. Williams, thank you for checking in. We'll give you a second to get your stuff together, but we will be taking up AB 482. Good bill that has support on both sides as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I'm here to present my bill, AB 482, which would allow the Ventura Port District dredging projects to utilize contractors that have been selected through a competitive bidding process for a federal dredging project off the coast of the county of Ventura. The port is required to dredge and maintain the Inner Harbor and the Ventura Keys neighborhood community, and historically significant cost components of maintenance dredging are the most significant portion of the costs are mobilization costs. In fact, the mobilization costs range from $750,000 to $950,000, while the actual dredge cost has only been about a couple $100,000. Because of that, we want to take advantage of a federally authorized dredging project carried out by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, so that there needs to be only one mobilization instead of two different mobilizations in the area.
Move the bill.
I'm happy to accept the Republican consultant's suggested amendment, which would add clarifying language in Section 1 to require the Board of Directors to make written findings. I'm also adding an urgency clause to the bill.
As amended.
Just wanted to help you out there, Mr. Knight. I have with me representatives of Port and of their representatives of their workers.
Very good. Witnesses in support.
Mr. Chair and members, Tim Schott on behalf of the Ventura Port District, and we have the Port's general manager here to answer any questions you might have.
Very good. Thank you.
Tim Kremens, operating engineers, in full support.
Thank you. Very good. Any witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, any questions from the committee?
I had one. I've actually been to the harbor. My question is that we've got lots of these problems throughout the state of California, and I realize the federal government has vetted these contractors as far as the competitive bidding when they just inch into the local. We've got one in San Leandro, dredging problem. It's always the same thing, and some of these local governments can't afford the capital cost that you've identified, Mr. Williams. Why would we not try to get a more comprehensive fix here? I don't want to hurt Ventura because my brother lives there and it would be a bad thing for me. But on these other little harbors, when they're dredging in the federal government, why would we not say, okay, call up the local guys and get a check and spend another 2 more hours in picking up their fill?
We did think about that, and we checked with the California Marine Affairs and Navigation Conference. They're an association representing all the ports and harbors in California, and they said that the only other harbor that they thought would be in a similar situation would be Santa Cruz, but that they have their own dredge. So we did try to attempt to make that a little bit wider, and we just didn't get any takers. That doesn't mean that our search was comprehensive, but we did make an attempt.
Okay. Because I know San Leandro's got to be bad.
Very good. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, Mr. Williams, you may close if you wish.
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Very good. Thank you. Let's go ahead and
if San Leandro wants in, I'll try through another vehicle.
And again, to be clear, the motion is to do pass with amendments and including an urgency clause. So this will hit the floor. We'll need the 2/3 vote on the floor. Please call the roll.
Smythe.
Aye.
Smythe, aye. Alejo. Bradford. Bradford, aye. Campos. Campos, aye. Wykowski. Wykowski, aye. Gordon. Waso. Knight. Knight, aye. Norby. The bill.
Thank you. Your measure's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Huber. Ms. Huber will be presenting Assembly Bill 1191, item number 5 on your agenda.
It was just Dave Jones. Dave's there.
Ooh, this chair's a little.
And just some housekeeping members before we start. Also, item number 6 for Mr. Norby, AB 1198 has been pulled. So so if you have that on your agenda, please remove that.
Nice to meet you.
Very good.
Good to see you. Great.
Ms. Huber, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. AB 1191 is slightly complicated only in that it deals with the triple flip and the VLF swap. So I'm going to try to explain it in as simple of terms as possible. We promised local governments in 2004 when we lowered the VLF and created a 1/4 cent of the local Bradley Burns sales tax as a source to pay back the economic recovery bonds, we promised that they would be kept whole and that they could backfill the loss from property tax revenues on a local level. The only problem is there is a separate statute that says if all of your school districts in the county are basic aid districts, you cannot transfer property tax revenue. And there are only 2 counties in the state who have this problem where they have lost the VLF revenue, lost the quarter-cent sales tax, and cannot get the property tax because of their school districts being basic aid school districts. And it's only because of the economic climate that we find ourselves in now, not through any fault of the local governments, not because of poor management, not because of misusing funds, but because the state made a promise to them that they could backfill the loss of those VLF revenues. And now that they can't do that with the school districts being basic aid, we need a mechanism in order to make those two counties whole. One county is Amador and the other county is Mono. They're the only counties affected by it. This particular bill doesn't say how much money they'll receive, but it does set up a mechanism by which we know exactly how much they're short, and we could find a way to make those counties whole. And I have some witnesses in support of the bill too. Thank you.
Very good. We do have a motion. Is there thank you very much. Let's go to witnesses in support.
Mr. Chairman, members, Terry Brennan on behalf of SEIU California. We represent the majority of the workers in these two counties and the affected cities. We're in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Dave Welbrecht. I was a CAO for Mono County for 8 years and now the town manager for Mammoth Lakes. We support this bill and really appreciate the work of the author and the committee that's done the work to do the backup on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Richard Forster. I'm County Supervisor from Amador County. Mr. Chairman and committee members, we urge your support of this. We are in a critical situation now because it has been triggered in our county, and we have over $2 million now due back to our school district. So we would greatly urge your support, and we thank Assemblymember Huber for carrying this legislation.
Very good. Thank you. Any other witnesses in support?
Jean Hurst on behalf of the California State Association of Counties. I'm one of the people who was here in 2004. This was a completely unintended consequence. We urge your support of the bill today.
Thank you. Any other?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and thank you for hearing this today, and thank you, Senator Huber, for helping us out. My name is Dwayne Haphazard. I'm a county supervisor from Mono, and we do appreciate this and ask for your support. The impacts would be significant to our county if we can't get these funds replaced. And we understand this is not a guarantee. It's just a mechanism to take and apply for covering our losses. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure some snow at Mammoth would help as well, but you know, thank you. Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Any opposition? Questions from the committee? Ms. Hubert?
Ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and call the roll.
The motion is due pass and re-refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Smythe.
Aye.
Smythe, aye. Alejo. Bradford. Aye. Bradford, aye. Campos. Campos, aye. Wachowski. Wachowski, aye. Gordon. Aye. Gordon, aye. Hueso. Aye. Hueso, aye. Knight. Aye. Knight, aye. Norby. Measure. Alejo, aye. Alejo, aye.
Very good. Your measure is out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. I believe I do not see Mr. Mendoza in the audience, so Mr. Hueso, if you are ready to go. That's good. I appreciate that. All right, Mr. Hueso will be presenting AB 662. And as I'm just again to remind everyone, which I didn't do at the beginning, the rules of the committee, 3 main witnesses, and then the rest will be add-ons. And I know Mr. Hueso is well aware of that. So, Mr. Hueso, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. AB 662 amends current law to mandate that an air installation compatible use zone, also known as an acronym ACUS, document is required to go through a public process before it's incorporated into a airport land use compatibility plan. This action will provide the public impacted by the land use restrictions the opportunity to comment on those prepared restrictions. Joining me today are Coronado Council members Mike Wywoody, Al Ovram, along with the Coronado city managers in the audience, and we have Jonathan Clay here representing Coronado as well. And they've prepared some brief comments and are prepared to share them with you today.
Mr. Chairman, may I distribute a handout that I'll refer to?
Please hand it to the sergeant. She will distribute.
Chairman, committee, good afternoon. My name is Mike Wywoody, Mayor Pro Tem of Coronado. I've lived there for 35 years. I'm also a retired Navy captain. I'm speaking today in support of AB 662. We very much appreciate this hearing, and we appreciate Assemblymember Hueso bringing this to your attention. Coronado was incorporated in 1890. The Navy first operated aircraft in 1911 on the property adjacent to our city, then began building the installation at North Island in 1917. Both the Navy and the city have placed a high priority on safety and neighborhood compatibility as the two of us have developed alongside one another. The military services are required to use their existing aviation operations and their plans for the future to notify adjacent jurisdictions of suitable land uses that underlie those air operations. We appreciate that. The Navy's process, as explained to us, consists of entering data into a model which creates an overlay of the area showing the land uses that are appropriate in each zone or sound profile regime. The output of that model is the ACUs. Now, to refer to the handouts, to show you an example of what this means in the case of Coronado. The first figure comes from the 1984 ACUs that the Navy prepared for the city of Coronado, which was the last one that we have to look at. In this figure, you see in red the runways and trapezoidal areas at the end that are called clear zones. And at the lower right corner, you'll see that that clear zone projects slightly into the city of Coronado. The yellow and orange areas are accident potential zones. They are offset from the axis of the runway because the Navy flies an offset approach in good weather, and so those zones are free of any housing areas. The blue and purple profiles show sound zone regimes that affect the environment. In particular, the light blue one, Sound Zone 2, which is 65 to 75 dB, calls for restrictions on windows and imposition of air conditioning, and that covers a small portion of the city of Coronado. The next chart shows, again from the Navy's 84 ACUs, suitable uses in each of the zones that I just described. Now, the big fold-out is the one that's of particular interest, because you won't see the same graphics on this because they haven't been prepared for this purpose. But this chart was prepared by the Navy in an environmental assessment they did in 2011 for adding helicopters at North Island. You'll see that the Sound Zone 2 that I referred to earlier, which is from 65 to 75 dB, runs from the yellow to the orange segments. So it's much larger than it was in 1984. It covers most of the houses within 2 blocks of the beach, and so we expect some change in the recommendations from the Navy as they go forward with their ACUs that's now in work from the one we had in 1984. In the one in 84, they made specific recommendations both to the Navy and to the city, none of which were implemented specifically, which is okay because at that time it was an advisory document. The overriding, the issue that we has been suggested to us is that if the Land Use Commission, the Airport Authority, in implementing restrictions suggested by the ACUs, if it uses that as the minimum set, which is the way the legislation is currently written, our relief is an override process. That's a difficult, very circuitous process that tends to point right back toward the same process that would have led us to the land use plan in the first place. In other words, it would have to find fault with the land use plan. It also imposes an assumption of responsibility on the city. So AB 662, as drafted, ensures that the communities, the residents, and the landowners located near military installations are treated no differently than communities next to civilian airports. We urge you to support AB 662.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Yes, Mr. Chair. My name is Al Overham Jr. I'm also a council member of the city of Coronado and also a retired naval officer, having lived in Coronado since family since 1951. There's 2 points I would like to make. One of them is to do with the process which can and probably will affect all of the people in Coronado, and that's the public's right to know what's coming, what's going to be the impact. And as I see it, this particular process that we're talking about here, we will not know that. The decisions will already have been made by the time it becomes public. And we would be looking for some profile or some help out of the legislature to see if we can make that more well known to our public. Mr. Waiwodi made known the tables and all of the pictures there. If you go back to the first one that little blue area he was talking about, the 1984 ACUS talked about 30 houses that fell into that zone, into those zones. Those houses have been there since the early mid-50s. So they presupposed both the 1979 ACUS and the 1984 ACUS. And so, as he pointed out, our consideration or our concern is the ability of those people and the expanded number of homes that fall into these noise zones, whether they will have an open process to find out what the impact on their houses shall be. The second one that Mr. Waiwodi also pointed out was the override, which has been suggested as a solution to this particular problem. From what we know right now, this process could be a very cumbersome process, rigorous process that takes findings of which may have to be made only if you can find fault with the ALCUP. And we're not sure that, and it very specifically says that if a local agency overrules, then immunity is granted to the airport operator. Does that shift the responsibility for any aircraft operations to us? So those are of concern to us, and so we were seeking your help in trying to change this, so I would like to urge your support of 662. Thank you.
Thank you. Last witness.
Jonathan Clay here also on behalf of the city. I guess given the testimony, I'll just simply be here for questions.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support of the bill? Very good. We'll move. Support? Tweener? Okay. All right, we'll do tweeners first, and then we'll move to the opposition then.
Let's see if this is on. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kathy Van Osten Rosenkindle, representing the city of Fresno. The airport director has contacted us and just raised a concern. We're not sure it is going to be a real issue with respect to the bill. Fresno Airport is considered a civilian airport. However, they do have California Air National Guard facilities that lease from the airport. So the concern stems around we have not been able to identify a clear definition of military airport within the state statutes. We're doing more research. We think there's hopefully a good chance to resolve any concerns with respect to whether Fresno would be considered a military airport or not. But we just wanted to raise the flag at this point. We may want to work with the author and the committee down the road to resolve this definition issue if we can't resolve it without the amendment. So we just wanted to raise it in policy committee. No support, no opposition. And we certainly don't want to hold up the bill.
Okay. Very good. Another tweener.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Nicolina Hernandez. I'm here on behalf of the California Airports Council, which is comprised of the 30 commercial airports in the state. Similar to Fresno Airport's comments, we do not have a position at this time. Our members are also still evaluating the language, and we did hear a couple questions from different members. We do agree also that the definition of a military airport may need to be clarified, and we're happy to work with the author and appreciate his efforts. That's all. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Move to opposition of the bill. And if we could make some room if you want to leave one witness with you, Mr. Way. So, I'm
sorry?
If you want to have one witness stay with you, we'll make some room for the. And again, same as the opposition, we'll do 3 lead witnesses, and the rest will be kind of the Me Too's. Captain?
It's live. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We represent from the Navy, and I also have a Marine Corps and an Air Force representative that will introduce themselves and speak in opposition. I have a prepared statement, if I'd be able to read that. Thank you. Chairman Smythe, Vice Chairman Alejo, and the committee members. My name is Captain Yancey Lindsay. I'm the commanding officer of Naval Base Coronado. Naval Base Coronado is part of the Navy Region Southwest, which encompasses all of the Navy's airfields in the Southwest, including facilities in 5 California counties. Those are Ventura, King, San Diego, Imperial, and Los Angeles. In addition, my boss, Rear Admiral Dixon Smith, who is the commander of Navy Region Southwest, represents all Department of Defense military services in California as the regional environmental coordinator and has coordinated our letter of opposition also with the U.S. Coast Guard. The amended bill would affect all military airfields throughout California as it attacks a document, which we've mentioned as the ACUS, and a process that is, by its very nature, informative, advisory, and designed to assist local land use authorities make decisions that are in the best interest of their citizens while helping to ensure the continued viability of the nearby military airfield. At the local level, military airfields provide tremendous economic benefit, a ready resource for volunteers, a node for humanitarian assistance, and a rapid response to natural disasters. AB 662 begins to unravel the strong relationship derived from the late Senator Knight's 2002 legislation, which helps ensure the long-term viability of these valuable assets and the billions of dollars of economic activity they bring to California. It is a relationship that has and continues to serve all stakeholders well. As a federal agency, the Navy takes very seriously its responsibility to work with state and local governments. Navy Region Southwest and Naval Base Coronado have a long history of cooperation with the City of Coronado. I meet monthly with the mayor and city manager at noticed meetings where the public is welcome to discuss a wide range of issues, to include the ACUS study process and document. In fact, the ACUS study has been an agenda item at several public meetings, and I have discussed it on numerous occasions with the mayor, the city manager, and city council members. It's important to note that an ACUS study for a military airfield is created pursuant to a scientific analysis of noise and safety hazards from high-performance military aircraft. The information in an ACUS study is based on federal activities and actions that were subject to NEPA, which is the National Environmental Policy Act, which includes public review and comment. The process is virtually identical to the process specified in the California Department of Transportation's Airport Land Use Planning Handbook. The Regional Airport Authority uses the advisory safety and noise information contained in the ACUS study to draft its Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, or ALUCP. It is the ALUCP that ultimately lists land uses that are compatible with airfield operations, and it is the ALUCP that guides the Airport Authority's consistency determinations, which may be subject to public review and comment under California's Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. Local government maintains the ultimate authority and responsibility for land uses within its jurisdiction and is not prohibited from implementing plans or projects that have been found inconsistent by the Regional Airport Authority. The law authorizes a governing body to overrule a Regional Airports Authority's consistency determination with a 2/3 vote following a public hearing, so long as the governing body makes specific recommendations that the proposed action is consistent with the purposes of Section 3.5 of the State Aeronautics Act. This overrule process preserves local government's constitutional land use authority, local government's ability to implement its plans and projects, and, in fact, has been exercised by the San Diego City Council in recent past. We believe that the current law and process is well-founded and should remain intact in the best interest of public health and safety and the continued viability of military airfields. If a local government chooses to approve a land use that is inconsistent with the safety and noise standards prescribed by the ALUCP, that is their prerogative, but the decision should be made with public transparency and accountability. We will, as we always have, continue to keep the City of Coronado apprised of our activities in the same fashion as all military facilities do in California. However, we are compelled to oppose any state laws or policies that have the potential of impinging on our ability to train, exercise, and operate as required to meet our national security mission. We are opposed to this bill and ask for a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Patrick Chrisman. I'm the Assistant Chief of Staff for Marine Corps Installations West and the Marine Corps Western Regional Director. I have a prepared statement, if I may, sir. Chairman Smythe, Vice Chairman Alejo, and members of the committee, I am testifying on behalf of the Western Regional Environmental Office and the Commanding General, Marine Corps Installations West, Brigadier General Vincent Colanese. The Marine Corps has 8 major installations in the region, including 3 with critical military airports. We are testifying today in opposition to Assembly Bill 662. The current provisions contained in state law provide adequate safeguards for public health and safety. The law also provides for a local override in special cases where the community has identified a need for a project that is contrary to our safety recommendations. This override provision has been used before around our Marine Corps airfields, including the San Diego area. We have no reason to fault the underlying state policy and believe it is unwarranted to make a wholesale change to a state law that has worked well to protect public health and safety and safeguard the military mission. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you. Next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Lieutenant Colonel J.T. Trumbo. I'm the Air Force's Western Regional Counsel. In that capacity, I serve as the Air Force's Chief Legal Advisor on environmental policy matters for Air Force installations in the state of California. I'd like to first thank the members of the committee for their support of California's continued cooperation with the Air Force through increased awareness of our military activities. Air Force installations in California provide vital resources supporting key national security missions. However, AB 662 threatens to undo years of successful federal-state partnership that has benefited both our California Air Force installations and their surrounding communities. Accordingly, the Air Force opposes this bill. As background, California hosts a more diverse array of our Air Force major commands than any other state, from strategic airlift at Travis Air Force Base, surveillance and reconnaissance at Beale Air Force Base, space launch at Vandenberg Air Force Base, advanced flight testing at Edwards Air Force Base, to reserve and training and operations at March Air Reserve Base. California's Air Force installations are crucial to supporting our national defense. To ensure the continued viability of these Air Force installations, like the Navy and Marine Corps, the Air Force also works with local, regional, and state agencies on compatible land use planning through the ACUS program. One of the core functions of ACUS, again, is to study and identify areas susceptible to aircraft accidents and high noise levels. It should be noted, however, that the service's ACUS guidance does direct our installations to provide for a public release of updated ACUS studies. Thus, the Air Force, as the Navy and Marine Corps, fully supports transparency and public involvement in the analysis of noise and safety impacts and considerations of reasonable land use restrictions by host communities and the airport land use commissions. However, tying ACUS to a formal hearing requirement makes no sense from a technical or scientific standpoint and would provide no benefit to California communities. In closing, this amendment will not help local California communities who have partnered with the Air Force under existing state law requirements. Further, this bill will provide no benefit to promoting aircraft or ground safety and may jeopardize California's continued capacity to host sustainable military readiness training for our outstanding airmen, soldiers, Marines, and sailors. As such, we join in opposition to this bill and ask for a no vote. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to testify today.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, this time we'll, any tweeners? Thank you. All right, questions from the committee. Mr. Wachowski.
My understanding, the bill does two things. It requires you to have a public comment, some participation, and the second, a specified environmental review plan. Captain, you indicated that the NEPA provisions provide for public release. Lieutenant Colonel, you indicated that there is also a public release, which is the Air Force's interpretation of the meeting their transparency requirements or duties. What's the difference of your interpretation between what the author's asking for public comment participation? Because I can't speak, well, you guys will speak. As a public official, I've sat in a lot of public hearing where I heard a lot of things that didn't improve the safety of the project that was going forward. I think the public likes to participate and they feel an obligation or sometimes a necessity to do it. So I tried to listen carefully to your comments, and you guys were reading, so I didn't have the benefit of that in front of me.
Okay, sir. Thank you for the question. Federal projects and actions do require and initiate NEPA processes. The ACUS document, the information the ACUS document presents and the information that is contained within it are derived from federal activities and actions that were subject to NEPA. An example is we just recently completed an environmental assessment to increase the number of helicopters at Naval Air Station North Island. Part of that environmental assessment was a noise study. That noise study, through that NEPA action on the helicopter increase, was subject to public review, comment, and the Navy had to respond to those comments. Right. That's the same noise study that's in the ACUS document. So that the information that's contained in the ACUS document is based on federal activities and actions that were subject to NEPA. So it's merely a scientific analysis or study that captures that information and specifically related to safety and noise that then, through the ACUS process, helps develop a dialogue between the community and the base to understand how land uses can impact the base's opportunity or ability to operate.
So you're saying the safety program you had doesn't really expand on the uses that the Air Force and military will be using at that site. It's the same general activities that were discussed in the first document, the NEPA review. Or the noise was the same analysis.
Yes, sir. And ACUS does not propose new actions or activities. It captures the noise and the safety and other aspects of existing activities. It does look forward because of land use decisions, but it is not the federal action that would implement that forward look. There would be other NEPA processes if we're going to add aircraft, add another aircraft carrier at North Island or those types of things. Those would initiate NEPA processes that would cover those activities and actions.
So your letter indicates that it ends with an inappropriateness of the public comment, and that's your word, not my word. I will see maybe it's not necessary or duplicative. I was caught. It jumped out at me when you said, well, it's inappropriate for the public to comment on a future document because lots of planning is what if we did this or what if you expanded this, and I don't know, the next generation of helicopters may be quieter, for instance. Okay. I guess it is what if there's no additional noise impact, then I think I'm following what you're saying. But obviously there is some concern with the community; they wouldn't be here.
Yeah, did you want to?
Sure. I think Mr. Wachowski, Jonathan Clay, lobbyist for the City of Coronado. I think the disconnect becomes whether they've done NEPA on the actual activities there. The problem is under state law that advisory document, that ACUS, which is a purely technical document in terms of here are the sound profiles, gets incorporated into, on the state side, through that airport compatibility use plan, which then dictates and drives land use decisions. And I think from the public's perspective, a lot of folks are not going to understand that a new helicopter base, yes, it may be louder, isn't going to have impacts on what they can actually do with their property. They may have a piece of property that's zoned for multifamily housing, but they have a single home there. And when you follow the different dots through this process and it lands on our side in California, you can have decisions that basically restrict what can be done there. And that then goes to the point that Councilmember Waiwudi made, which is you then force a city that has coexisted with this base for many, many years, has been built out for many, many years, to have to go through this very onerous override process. And trying to get to override under the handbook guidelines, there's a pretty stiff threshold in terms of the evidence that you have to go through to get to that. So I think we agree with the Navy in terms of how they're describing the NEPA for the actual operations, ACUS is advisory, but really the problem is this disconnect that got created in state law on how you treat this. And we're kind of unique in Coronado in that you have a community that has been fully built out next to an airbase for a very, very long time.
Well, first of all, I wanted to welcome Captain Lindsay, the commanding officer of the Naval Base there, and all our other two branches of the government that are here, and all the serving officers. I want to welcome you to Sacramento and for coming up. It's very rare that we get three branches of government coming to speak on a bill, but certainly wanted to thank you for your service to our country.
That was my whole goal.
And our even our council members from Coronado, we're veterans of our service as well. I want to thank you, and I appreciate a meeting with both sides, the city of Coronado, and I met with you all earlier as well. And certainly, I share the concerns coming from our military, because here's an issue very unique to Coronado, and the concerns coming from community residents and wanting to have public comment and to give their input into this document that once was a guiding document, but as you said, back in 2002, there was a night bill that made it mandatory once it's part of the, I get mixed up with all these acronyms, the ALUCP. But certainly I have concerns, that's why we have our Marine Corps and our Air Force here, because the effort to deal with the problem in Coronado could have greater implications for all the other air bases throughout the state. And maybe, and I put it out here, sometimes there are unintended consequences that until trying to deal with one problem unique to this relationship between the naval base and Coronado, it creates a lot of other problems out here in other parts of the state. And so I share those concerns, and I heard them loud and clear. But also, I think hopefully this bill has been in discussion. I think Mr. Wessel filed this bill last year, parked it to allow the opportunity for the locals and the naval base to hopefully find a solution. That hasn't happened yet, but I'm hoping that you'll make more progress in that in terms of addressing those local issues. And I know for our captain, there's a higher rank too, and people in D.C. that he has to kind of deal with and trying to reach a solution to this problem as well. But I'm offering a courtesy vote to Assemblymember Wesley. He's a member of this committee, but with the hopes and urging both sides to hopefully reach an agreement very soon. I think we've heard from other local government members having some concerns, and hearing loud and clear what our military officers are expressing here today as well. So I wanted to just make a motion to approve, but reserving the right that once it gets on the floor to change my vote if some agreement cannot be hopefully reached among both parties. I mean, the naval base and the community of Coronado are intertwined, and the council members are trying to deal with some complex issues and concerns from their residents, and the naval base is also having to deal with their issues as well. And I think there's a way to reach an agreement there. I just want to encourage that, and hopefully this won't be needed, but certainly those discussions need to happen in some resolution. And I commend Mr. Wessel. It's a tough issue for him as well, but he's trying to do his best and trying to find some common ground here. So I move the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second it, and I'd like to make some comments at the appropriate.
Very good. Mr. Knight, or do you want to do? Go ahead. Then, Ms. Campos, go ahead. Go for it.
Well, thank you, and I'm not going to echo all the comments that Member Alejo reiterated, but I think that, first of all, thank you for both the two groups being here. I think that some of the thinking behind this land use issue for myself and probably some of my colleagues who I'm looking across the table, and we're all from local government, so we've dealt with land issues, and just about all of us have had an airport in our district or in our city or county and had to deal with neighboring neighborhoods that have coexist for many years. I actually grew up right next to an airport, so I was accustomed to hearing the planes and actually seeing them fly over my home. But I appreciate the bill that has come forward, because as public servants, our priority is to make sure that we can address the well-being of our constituents. So I think that was the thinking behind the member and the council members who feel very passionate about this issue. But I also have listened and heard the concerns of the three branches of our military, because your argument states very clear that it is your right and your mission to make sure that you are able to protect and have the ability to do your job in an efficient manner. And so I appreciate that very, very much. I think the only comment that I'm going to reiterate is that being close to Moffett Field, NASA, and I think my colleague alluded to this, that this could spill over into other issues. And so I do share those same concerns coming from, and I believe it's close to you, Mr. Walkowski, isn't it? That we also have that military branch in our area. And I'm really encouraged, having spoke to my colleague, Member Wesso, that he is working with all of you and that you will hopefully come to some agreement on how we can make this process as open as possible, at the same time respecting the privacy or the issues that you all need to have before you release the document. I get that very, very clear, and do not want to cast a vote that would hinder your ability to be able to respect that. So I second it as a courtesy motion for a member of this committee, and I am confident that there will be some resolution as this moves forward. If not, then we will probably have a different view of this as it moves forward to the floor, and hopefully it won't get that far. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Knight.
Well, I guess what would this bill be without me talking about it? I've heard a couple comments that we're moving this forward, that there's work to be done, and that we hope that when it gets to the floor, it's a good bill. And that seems to be the way we do things up here. In committee, though, we have a bill in front of us that has tried to take away something that has worked for 10 years. I understand that this is an issue that is affecting Coronado, but it does affect other bases. We have some very vital bases here in California. One that is in my district, Edwards Air Force Base, that has an awful lot of issues that local governments have to deal with, and encroachment of local government and the issues that local government does to the base is also one of the issues that we have to deal with. That is consistently more of the problem than vice versa. But as we move forward, obviously I'm going to be a no vote on this. I agreed with the original plan of 10 years ago. I think that it has worked. I think that the military does have to have some sort of ability to protect this nation and to move forward in a plan that can see that. Over the last 10 or 12 years, we've seen BRAC come in and gut our military a little bit, or quite a lot of bit. And those are things that we should take into consideration when we're voting on a bill like this. So I will not be supporting this bill. I know that's a shocker to everyone in the room. But I don't want to push forward a bill that is obviously not something that everyone is comfortable with, because we're going to try and work it to a place to get it on the floor. I think that that's something that we work with authors quite a bit before it comes to committee. And if there are little issues that come up, but it seems like this is a big issue, and I think in a lot of people's minds this is a big issue.
Good. Any other comments from the committee? Mr. Wesso, if you'd like to address some of the questions in your close.
Yes, I will. And I just want to say, just to really understand the comments being made that this has been working well in their state. Coronado, for the city of Coronado, this is the first time they've gone through this process. It's not the first time they've seen an ACUS plan, but it's the first time that they've seen an ACUS plan that's affected by a bill that was produced in 2002. Now, the bill, might protect other military bases, but Coronado is a very special circumstance. It's a city that had structures pre-existing the alignment of the airport. So, there's very little that the city could do to protect itself when the law says it's the Knight bill, the late great Knight bill, did one thing. It changed one word from may to shall, just one word. One word turned an advisory document into a mandatory document, which is the law that you have to respect, and there's no wiggle room for the city of Coronado. I'll grant you that I've been working on this for a year now, and the bill may not be where I want it to be, and I have to give a lot of kudos to the Navy, to Captain Lindsay, to former Admiral French. He's still an admiral, but I mean he was our CEO in San Diego, who was extremely approachable. I think the Navy has been working with us amazingly well. For the city of Coronado, this is their first attempt at this, their first experience through this process. And frankly, I think they're doing their job and looking out for the people of Coronado. And I want to work with them to make sure that in this process people are adequately informed, because above all, this is a safety issue. We want to be on the side of providing the safest environment for Coronado residents. And above all, we want to provide that level of readiness that our military needs to make sure that cities like Coronado and all the rest of the cities in our state are adequately protected. I'm not trying to erode their level of preparation or their level of readiness. That's not the intent of this bill. This is one of those bills that if you change one word, you have enormous consequences. And we're looking at the fine details, fine print of what we can do to create that flexibility that we need, simply to somehow mitigate or reduce the impacts. You know, opening it up to the public is not a bad thing. I mean, there are people in the community that can make suggestions. I know there's one level where science is science, but hopefully, if people in the community know that nothing can be done, those aircraft cannot do anything other than what they're designed to do, I think that would go a long way at making people understand that there are certain modifications that need to be made in the neighborhood to accommodate that. That's understandable. I think right now nobody has seen the ACUS. It hasn't been approved yet in Washington. It hasn't been opened up to scrutiny of the public or education of the public, for that means, for people to see this is what we have in our backyard, and you know, we need to protect ourselves. That's, you know, so there's a lot of technical aspects that I would like to weed out. They may be possible that we don't need any modifications, and it's looking more and more that way, because the Navy has been more than willing to share an enormous amount of information that they can't even guarantee is going to be in the ACUS, and that's been them just simply saying, look, we want to be a good neighbor, but we have constraints within our own department that prevent us from really disclosing information. We understand that as well. So I appreciate your support today. I understand where you may be if you don't, but I just wanted all of you to understand our intent, to understand what we're trying to accomplish, and you know, I pray that we all come together and are able to come up with what we need to make sure that all parties are made whole in the end. That's what we're trying to accomplish. So thank you very much for your consideration and your support today.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Way. So we do have a motion and a second on the bill, so let's go ahead and call the roll.
The motion is do pass. Smythe?
No.
Smythe, no. Alejo? Aye. Alejo, aye. Bradford? Bradford, aye. Campos? Campos, aye. Wachowski? Wachowski, aye. Gordon? Aye. Gordon, aye. Hueso?
Aye.
Hueso, aye. Knight? No. Knight, no. Norby?
All right, that measure is out and heads to the floor. Thank you. Good. We have one final bill to take up. Mr. Mendoza, I did see him. There he is. Yeah, there. He moved. Mr. Mendoza, AB 785. And Mr. Mendoza, before you get started, I would like to introduce to the committee, we have a new member of the team. Hank Dempsey is our new consultant on the committee, so wanted to welcome him today, his first bill up. So, you know, he got a good easy one, right, Mr. Mendoza? That's
I don't know.
to start him with. So, exactly.
Very good.
All right, Mr. Mendoza, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. I'm here to present AB 785, a bill that would encourage greater transparency and help maintain impartiality to the decisions entrusted to us as elected or appointed public officials. I do intend to take amendments offered by this committee to help clarify that AB 785 would not supersede current statute in Government Code 1090, and will take those amendments in Appropriations Committee. AB 785 addresses troubling circumstances where family members lobby an elected official and or its body to influence decisions that result in material financial effect for the family member, and as a result create a financial benefit through an official governmental decision. Basically, this bill makes two changes. The first change says that if you're an elected official and the person lobbying you or the person that's going to be getting the contract from you or that body is a family member, then you should abstain from that decision for conflict of interest. And then we define, the second thing we do is define what a immediate family member is. An immediate family member could be your dad or your mom, your brother, your sister, or your son or your daughter. And that's it. We keep it to those parameters, and their spouses, if brother, spouse, whatever. That's what we keep it through. Those are the two changes we are making in this particular part of the law. Just again creates more clarity. We did pass an article for you to read that kind of discusses some of the issues that are happening. Not that it just is a one-time issue. It's been happening. I served in the city council for 10 years. I saw numerous times where a council member would constantly approve a contract for his brother. And I continually asked the city attorney, why was this legal? And the city attorney, well, it's legal because there's no financial relationship. I said, well, yeah, but there's a blood relationship. Obviously, that's his brother, so he's not going to vote against his brother. He's like, yeah, but the law is a law. It's still within the means. It left a really bad impression, but legally it was in its it was the right thing. It was under the law. I guess it was okay. But I think for us as elected, it really leaves a bad impression when someone approves a contract or some sort of benefit that an immediate family is going to gain from approving this project or whatever. And I think that's where this bill is so desperately needed, because right now no such thing exists, and folks are out there doing things that leave a bad impression on behalf of the public. So with that, I respectfully ask for your aye vote and can answer any questions.
Very good. Are there any witnesses in support? Any opposition? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair members. Natasha Carl on behalf of the League of California Cities. We are opposed to the bill today. I do want to be clear. We said this in elections on Monday that our position of opposition doesn't mean that we're closed off to having a conversation about where the Political Reform Act might be inadequate. We're happy to have that conversation. But if there are going to be significant changes made to the Political Reform Act, we want to make sure that the appropriate stakeholders are at the table, including attorneys that work in this area on a daily basis. I submitted the latest version of the bill, which I received late last week, to the League's FPPC committee. It's a group of city attorneys that work on issues like this. And they raised several concerns about this particular version of the bill. And I just want to raise two of those concerns with you today. First, the Political Reform Act traditionally has dealt with preventing public officials from making decisions that financially benefit them. But this bill changes that longstanding rule, and it applies the restrictions of the Political Reform Act to decisions where a public official may not have a financial interest. We think making this kind of a change has a couple of consequences. First, it creates what we think is a fictional financial interest. And secondly, it muddies the waters a little bit under the Political Reform Act. We think it can create some confusion. And in laws that are as complex as this, we want to make sure that the lines are very clear so that our local electeds can make sure they're complying with them. The second issue that our folks raised is related to the the definition of immediate family member. This bill introduces a new definition of immediate family member that is an additional definition. There's already a definition of immediate family member in the Political Reform Act, so we think that may also cause some confusion. So with that, I just want to thank you for your time.
Chairman Smythe and distinguished committee members, my name is Lou Currier. I'm director with LA County Firefighters Local 1014, a member of the State Council of the International Association of Firefighters. We represent 30,000 career firefighters and EMS personnel. Speaking today to respectfully request your no vote on AB 785. AB 785 is currently drafted would break new ground by completely re-engineering the conflict of the Political Reform Act by extending its financially interested provisions to situations where a governmental decision does not have the potential for having a financial impact on an elected official. We feel it's too broad in its definitions and would cause elected officials to have to recuse themselves from participating in governmental decisions, therefore interfering with the public officials' ability to conduct the public's business. AB 785 will have effects beyond just local government officials, extending to anyone serving on a public board, making decisions that may or may not involve a financial interest. In principle, LA County Firefighters Local 1014 proudly ascribes to strong ethical standards, including the principle of remaining free from conflict in the conducting of the public's business. But the provisions of this measure go too far. Both common law doctrine and a recently rendered Attorney General's opinion sufficiently provide guidance to elected officials and others in the public service without creating an indefensible standard that applies so broadly and presumptively as this proposed measure does. LA County Firefighters Local 1014 opposes AB 785 because it lacks a common sense approach to this issue, and in doing so creates a chasm of doubt and potential unintended consequences that will severely hamper those conducting the public's business. For these reasons, we urge your no vote on this bill, and I thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you. Next witness.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Christy Baumer representing the California Professional Firefighters. We are also opposed to the bill. And to be careful not to repeat, I would just suggest that the law is very clear about what a financial interest is, and this bill would just probably serve to muddy the waters, and as the previous witnesses said, creates a presumption. Now the burden is that you have to assume everybody that's related to you now creates a financial interest for you, and you would have to somehow demonstrate why they do not. I think that handcuffs you in your deliberations, and we are opposed.
Thank you. Last witnesses. We know we usually keep to 3 witnesses, so Mr. Gonzalez, if you could just keep it.
I can't tell my family history. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Anthony Gonzalez representing the city of Lakewood. We are opposed. And a little family history. My father served as mayor of Derry Valley. I actually have a sister-in-law that is a mayor of a small town here in Northern California. And with the size of my family, it would always be a conflict. We ask for a no vote.
Very good. So you have a personal stake in this. Very good.
Okay.
Very good.
I'll take that as an amendment.
Yeah.
To amend this family out of this bill.
Very good. Oh, specific carve-outs. I like it. All right. Any other witnesses on the bill? Very good. Move to questions from the committee. I'll just real quick, Mr. Mendoza. I think we all share the concern that you're bringing up. My concern, I think, is just how broad it does go. I mean, when you look at the list of definition of immediate family member would be spouse, domestic partner, child, parent, sibling, or the spouse or domestic partner of a child, parent, sibling, public official. And I just think that net starts to get pretty broad, beyond just the real tight thing. So I think that's where kind of my concerns lay on the bill, is just how broad that definition is. So I don't know if any other, Mr. Alejo.
I would echo those concerns, and I've spoken to Assemblymember Mendoza about his bill, and I think there's some legitimate concerns that he raised, but I just also had problems. I mean, this is a voter initiative, Prop 9 in 1974, 37 years. I only know that because I was born in 1974, so it's as old as I am. But certainly, it's a broad expansion of what the family members are, and also what a financial interest is. And I think it will have greater implications for a lot of other areas, and a lot of public officials having to recuse themselves whereas in the last 37 years they did not have to. I know there was local concerns from a local case in Los Angeles County, but like I expressed previously, a problem in one area doesn't always mean it's the right solution on a statewide basis, and I think this bill certainly requires more thought and more debate and more concern. But I just, at this point in this bill, something that could have wide ramifications, I just can't support at this point, and so I'm going to withhold voting on this bill today.
Mr. Wayso.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if anybody from the FPPC was here today. No one? I just had a question in terms of procedure. I kind of, maybe the author knows. No, not that. I mean, they enforce our laws. That's a good thing, especially a voter-approved initiative. I know it's been amended and changed, and I know it goes through a process of gathering input, and I know sometimes laws are inserted, sometimes are removed, so it's a dynamic process. But in a case where you have a lobbyist family member, I think the law requires lobbyists to register as lobbyists. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. So if they make a contact with a family member who's an elected official, they have to disclose that publicly.
The different levels of government might have different rules. I don't know in our area.
But the overarching state law that is also enforced at the local level, does that require a disclosure? Does anyone know that answer?
They couldn't disclose every time they talk with us.
Mr. Wayso, I don't believe it's not at the local level.
Okay, because I know those are the rules in San Diego, and in San Diego, lobbyists had to disclose their contact when they're elected.
Right, and I think each municipality can establish their own their rules.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Can I answer some of the concerns that were kind of raised, or should I wait till everybody?
I think we'll wrap it up, and then you can hit them all at one time instead of. Okay, now's your time. Ms. Rado, if you want to address those.
And just to clarify a few things.
Mr. Gordon, did you have a question? No, okay.
Just to clarify a few things, I keep hearing that there's concern that we're broadening, we're revamping and changing things, and we've talked extensively with Ledge Council, and Ledge Council has an expert when it comes to the Political Reform Act, so it's not like we don't have somebody in house, and they're adamant about it's not that broad, it's specific. Remember, immediate family member, we all have them, our parents, our brothers and sisters, and our children. That's the immediate family. I'm not talking about cousins or anybody else. No, we're immediate family members who are lobbying you or are in front of you asking for a contract or are lobbying about giving a project to somebody to get it. They're going to financially benefit from. That's what we're talking about. And it's when you read this article here. Or let me just continue. I know Mr. Alejo brought the voter initiative. It was a voter initiative, and actually one of the people who actually was one of the founders of this initiative was very supportive of this. Said that this is taking the voting rights act in the right direction because we're augmenting to it instead of taking away from it. So we're only making it better. So he agreed with that. But we're not here to muddy the waters. We're actually here to make it clear. If you have a family member in front of you asking for an immediate family member, you should abstain. That's like most logical. It's unfortunate that we have to do a bill to prevent things like this from happening. People should automatically know this. If there's a city official or a county official who has their son or relative or immediate family member in front of them saying, help my client out because I know I'm going to get something out of it, it's wrong for them to go ahead and proceed for a vote. They should automatically, what, I feel weird about this. I feel wrong about voting for my son's client or my son's lobbying firm or whatever, but they don't. They don't feel no remorse. It's shameful, and that's what we're trying to address here. It's like let's be clear. If you're not willing to do the right thing on your own, then we always step up and as legislators and say, look, this is the right thing to do, and we're going to go and help you make the right decision. And we're not here, and we'll work with the opposition to see exactly what their concerns are. But remember, we are expanding or redefining exactly what a family member is. And we're talking about immediate family. Now, we're not talking, just immediate. And one section that says if they happen to be in front of you asking for money or a contract or something, just recluse yourself. Remember, we got board members that are 5-member boards, 7 by 13. they got plenty of people that go vote for your brother's contract or whatever. Why do you have to be the one that have to be a part of that decision? So that's what I'm just trying to get to, and I hope that I answered some of your questions and some of the concerns, but remember, this is very narrow, and Ledge Council would agree that it's very narrow. Any more questions, Mr. Chair?
I believe Mr. Norby is checked in.
Checked in. I caught that.
The spouses are already covered, right? Because since you have community property.
Anybody that lives together, it's covered right now. That's
right. You share property, so there's a direct conflict there, right?
They live with each other. Yeah.
Right. Although spouses can still do fundraising for candidates, right?
I don't know.
That's a separate issue.
Not in the state of California. Only in Washington.
And I understand the purpose behind this. I think maybe there'd be more political embarrassment that would be involved that the law would not be able to compensate for. But my just question is how far do you draw the family? I mean, you got half-brothers, step-brothers, and I'm not sure how far this would be drawn to define family.
It's just brothers and sisters, just brothers, immediate family. Brothers, you have access to they were hanging out with you during Christmas, I'm sure they were. The immediate family, that's what you got.
But you got different kinds of brothers. You got blood brothers, full blood, you got half blood, you got step-brothers, you got. So I don't mean to pick at it. It's just that
I get that.
You'll have a case where someone's adopted son, for example, may do this. They'll say, well, he's not really my son. Is it a legal definition?
Yeah, well,
if he's not
legally,
adopted but
brother,
raised him?
Legally, yeah.
So I may lay off, and if so, that's why. Because the definition of family, as you know, is a sort of a cultural construct as well as a biological one, and it changes. But
we're sticking to the legal concept. That's it, just legal. Yeah, legal definition. We're not going to family and make believe and all kinds of stuff. Just kind of, that'll be too much.
Thank you. Very good. We have kind of wrapped up. I know if you would like to, wrap a close and answer questions if you want to.
I pretty much kind of answered a lot of the questions and the concerns, and I just respectfully ask for your vote.
Right. Obviously, members, the challenge are because it's a 2-year bill that is keyed fiscal. Friday is kind of the drop dead, so the ability to continue to work on the bill is really limited. We don't have that luxury that we've had in last year, so we do have to kind of go up or down on the bill. If anyone does wish to make a motion, on the bill, we certainly can entertain that at this time. Okay. Is there a second? I understand. So I understand. It's fine. Okay. We do have a motion and a second. Therefore, we will be able to have a vote on the bill. I know the motion is due pass to appropriations, I believe. Please, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Smythe.
No.
Smythe, no. Alejo. Bradford. Campos. Campos, no. Wykowski. Gordon. No. Gordon, no. Hueso. Hueso, no. Knight? No. Knight, no. Norby?
No.
Norby, no.
That measure does fail. And I believe, again, if you wish to bring it back, you know the rules. You've been around as long as we have, so you know Mr. Mendoza. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. Members, that does conclude our business. If you do wish to add on, please orderly file up to Dixie, and she will take care of you.